Hey, welcome to the Emergence. It's been a while. Jay Paul DePlant is here. Last time I had somebody on the Emergence, the podcast, was 3 years ago, actually. And my last podcast I did uh, with me talking was a communication problem back a couple of years ago. So, in the intervening years, I decided to take all of my essays and put that into a book. Um, Also, Gen AI happened where all these ideas I've been talking about for years and years and years seem to kind of be wrapped up in Gen AI and the prologue of my book that I'm writing. I talk about that and now that can empower us as individuals. Since then, I definitely see some forces where they're trying to put that genie back in the bottle, but I don't know. I think it's going to be tough to really take these tools away from us and completely getting them out of our hands, like what happened with the open web. So we'll see. But I published the book on Lulu, kind of soft published it. I never promoted it because I didn't really feel I was ready for the book to be published. Haven't sold any books. I've given a couple away. Not a big deal. Then I decided what the problem was because I've been complaining about the communication problem for all of these years that I decided I need to go into build mode. That means that I need to start build technology. Now, the problem is I'm not a coder. I've never been a coder. I can't wrap my brain around it. Never have. I've tried. I just don't have the memory for it. I don't have the patience for it. I'm a super creative person, but it's never really gelled with my brain. So what I decided to do when I really felt I needed to build something, back in the day, I tried to launch a company called Quired.com, and I had a partner in there, and we tried to do it. I was bouncing all over the place, but really, what it was, I relied on my partner to really build, and I was too far removed from it. It was all my fault. It crashed and burned, and it was definitely not my partner's fault. It was my fault because I couldn't focus because I saw something. My vision that I had for it wasn't available yet. This was back in around 2006, 2007, and I see that. Now that Gen AI, so what I decided to do is like, okay, if I want to build something, let's what I envisioned with Quired back in the day, let's see if I can build it myself with Gen AI generating the code. So that's what I've been doing. And I came up with something I'm calling the Deep Inquiry Framework. It's not a platform. I'm actually arguing against platforms and silos. It's a framework for people to be able to use the code and build their own things. And I think it's important and really other people, super creative people, to harness Gen AI, like what I've done. So I've been limited in my technology and my ability to code, but I think that is something that we're going to put to bed here, where more and more people are going to be able to harness these tools. And so I built it. I had kind of a little bit of a revelation, and I'm going to bring this guest on here in a minute. His name is Ravis Martinez. And I just was, as I've been building this, I've been building the deep inquiry framework and coding and frustrating beyond frustrating because I'm not a coder. Everybody who thinks that you're going to magically talk to Gen AI and it's going to build something for you is yeah, it's just at least with me. Maybe I'm that stupid. I don't know, but I have been going back and forth for months on this and really struggling with it. But I'm getting there. So I have been building this, and I'm a recruiter by trade, so that's what I do full time. And I talked to this gentleman that I was looking to help find a job. His name is Ravis Martinez. And nobody has read my book. Nobody, I have it on Emergence, theemergence.io, but it's just I'm not promoting it. And this gentleman that I started talking to, very interesting. I just really good energy on the phone with him. And then he said, "So, you mind me asking you one more question?" And I said, "Sure, sure." And I thought it was going to be recruiter related, regarding the client. And he said, "What's with the solid frameworks?" And I just at the time I just had no idea. It's like, well, I don't. What do you mean solid? And I said, the only thing I know about solid is in my book, but nobody knows about my book. And he goes, no, I've been reading it online and solid framework. And, I've been using the word solid framework. It's really, I don't even think they use solid framework. Maybe they do in here and there, but it's solid pods. It's Tim Berners-Lee's project. And so what I found out is Ravis Martinez is actively involved in the homeless community in Lafayette, Louisiana. And he was wondering if you could harness solid pods to be able to help engage the community. And I was thrown back because you could not get any closer to what I'm talking about and all of my ideas and what I've been fighting for years and years and years to talk about impacting a community of homelessness. And I said, what I'm actually doing is that with my deep inquiry framework, I'm going to build a for-profit where I would like to find out ways for my ideas to make money. It would be nice. I've never been able to do it, but one of these days, where I'm actually using the deep inquiry framework for people to engage resonantly around products. So my first thing is I'm going to sell business software, and I'm going to have articles and reviews and tools for people to really have a better understanding of this, and then make my money through affiliate commissions. I want to make that available once I build it out on GitHub for people to do it on their own. So a welfare mom could then be able to harness it to sell things, or anybody, a kid or somebody retired wants extra money. They can use this free framework to be able to take code and then manipulate it themselves. The other side of it, I was building something called Pathways for Mental Health. It's a nonprofit. So I'm basically creating two templates on GitHub. One is for profit, one is for not for profit. And what I talked about Ravis with is the fact that not for profit model, mental health. And I said, homelessness, the core of it is the mental health issues our society is having. I mean, everybody realizes that. Well, not everybody. I've had some conversations that have blown me away by what some people don't realize how incredibly important the knowledge of what's going on with mental health awareness in our communities. And it's severe and it's getting worse. So what I wanted to do is take the deep inquiry framework and that framework and apply it to a community. When I was talking to Ravis, he said, well, that's really interesting. And he said, maybe we can get on a Zoom call with some of his community members. He's very involved in his community. I think it looks like he ran for office. He knows the mayor. I said, well, you know what? I haven't done a podcast forever. And this is interesting enough. Before we even bring anybody else involved, let's just you and I hash it out and talk about it. I'll show you the framework and we can get an idea. And if it's something you're interested in, we'll go from there. If you're not, no harm, no foul. I wanted to do a podcast. And the funny thing is that I didn't really have it built out the way I wanted to build it out. And so knowing that I had to have a conversation with Ravis coming up, I went into full build mode, and very frustrating. I mean, I can feel how much true coders, what they go through, because it's just insane. But anyhow, I got it up to a certain degree of functionality, and it's just a demo site. It's not all working, and I don't even have the database tied in with it. But it's this idea, and you're real short. And what I'm going to do is with the deep inquiry framework, that's going to end up being the last chapter of the Emergence. So I'm going to wrap it up where the fact if I talk about the communication problem, the prologue is talking about Gen AI, and then I'm going to use me as an example of harnessing Gen AI. And okay, I've identified we have a communication problem. What's the solution? We need to build it. People on the street, recruiters, medical nurses, doctors, whatever, police officers, firefighters, people who are homeless. You'd be surprised. And that's one of the things we're going to cover with Ravis here coming up is everybody has potential, everybody. And in my opinion, everybody has the potential to build tools. So why aren't we building our own tools to get us off the platforms of Amazon, of Facebook, of X, and why don't we build our own little silos, and not even silos? Why don't we build our own little frameworks and share? So that's kind of the idea behind the deep inquiry framework. I'm going to wrap up those ideas in my book, and then I'm going to publish it for real, at least attempt to. And so this conversation that's coming up with Ravis is going to unfold the elements of the ideas of the framework, but more importantly, what I hope will be uncovered is how you could use something like the framework, because these things have been trapped inside my head for years and years and years. And here, I'm going to share a screen real quick and show what the framework looks like real quick. And again, it's just a super simple website. It's nothing amazing. I'm building something what we call what I call an attractor, which is going to be a filter. Right now, it's just talking about what I have plans for. Nothing's really functional, but it's about basically getting profiles and providers and insights and even products. I did for this one, I didn't put products in there, but it's a way to it's effectively a way to bring curators on a website. So I'm going to be a curator of these sites, especially for my business software. I'm the one who's going to create these pages and of software and insights. So I'm the curator, and then there's participants of people coming in and engaging with the content. So what's unique about Deep Inquiry Framework, before I introduce Ravis here, is the fact that I'm building it where there's no pop-ups, no passive pop-ups. So if you click on something, something can pop up. What I'm incredibly frustrated with is these pop-ups on the web that you don't even click on anything and it pops up and it's getting your way. It's barriers is what it is. It's friction. And free and open software, open source software completely. Anybody that I build off of on GitHub can use this code and share it and edit it and give it back or whatever they want to do with it. And so I do have some principles that I set up that and no login requirements. If I want to use solid pods where if somebody wants to engage privately, they will log in. But just to be able to use the site, you don't have to log in. I've always become frustrated with that myself. So basically what I've tried to do is build to what I've become frustrated with. So I'm not just talking about the communication problem. I'm now talking about a communication solution. One solution, not the solution, because I'm not going to build a platform. I'm building a framework that other people way smarter than me are, I hope, going to build off of it and build much better things than I could ever imagine. And it could be a kid, it could be a 14-year-old kid, could be an 80-year-old grandmother. I don't know. I don't care. It could be anybody from all stripes of life, all colors, all economic backgrounds. So that's the key. So there's a little bit of an intro here. It's been a while. I thought I'd catch everybody up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on Ravis Martinez, and I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with him. Thanks. Hey, Ravis, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Paul? Glad to be with you this evening. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and in my intro here, I kind of set up the fact that it was so funny how meeting you happened, where we were just
Sure,
on a recruiting call, and then you
sure.
brought up the word solid, and my brain didn't catch up with what you're talking about. It's like, what are you? Nobody's read my book. What are you talking about?
Well, well,
So
like I shared with you, Paul. Then I was highly interested in understanding, just how that fit in, or the work that you've been doing, could fit in or overlap into, some of the challenges we see in my local community and some of the organizations and things I'm involved with. I just felt like we connected in that call. I felt it was meaningful. And I'm excited that we're literally looking at new ways or new avenues to address, these social problems, specifically homelessness, and specifically in the Lafayette, Louisiana area. So, kudos to you and your work over the last 3 years or plus in developing your thoughts, your ideas, but meaning really the framework. Because, like I said, I think it's something um, that can be a meaningful tool that providers, support folks, participants, the unhoused, that they can feel secure in getting the services and the needs that, and the things that they need. So, I want to applaud you in your efforts, knowing that this is noble work. Um, and I really think that we're on to something special. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
yeah, and I'm glad you said we, because this is what this is all about. And
Mhm.
it's not about really, it's not really about my ideas. I would like to get the ideas out into the community and let smarter people than myself
Sure.
dig in. So, talking about that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? What brought you
Yeah.
to this community?
Uh, when people ask me that question, Paul, I normally start with saying, "Hey, look, I'm a girl dad. I got three beautiful daughters, a 13-year-old and a set of twins that are 10, identical girl twins. And for me, I want to be able to answer the question from them when they ask me, Daddy, all this stuff that's going on in the world around us, what were you doing to impact or to help change some of these things that we're seeing in our community? What kind of work were you doing? And I want to have an answer for him, Paul. I want to be able to say, hey, daughters, daddy was out there swinging at the fences. I got some strikes, but I hit some balls also. And hopefully, I can tell them that, hey, through my interaction with Mr. Duplantis, I was able to hit a home run in an area that's really needed in our community, is dealing with the homeless situation. So, my motivation has always been within public service in really trying to find ways to serve those less fortunate. I started off as a young Marine, went and served my country, honorable service, 4 years. Then I got out, went to college, got my undergrad at USL, UL at the time, and stayed engaged. Became the student body president there, student member of the board, supervisors, and really hit the ground running and really trying to help people in whatever situation that they may have found themselves in. Because, like I do, most of us are really 1 or 2 paychecks away from homelessness, unfortunately, in this country. Mm-hmm. And so we have to find different ways that we can connect folks and do things differently. Over the years, for the past 15, 20 years, I've been a fierce advocate for those that don't have a voice. So I've served in many capacities, many roles. I currently serve as the president of the NAACP, the Lafayette branch here. I've served, on the Library Foundation here locally. I've served on ARCH, which is the Acadiana Coalition of Homelessness here. And I also advise and work with our local agencies, which is Smile, and also Catholic Charities, who are focused on servicing, the unhoused population. For me, it's critical that we find ways or tools that can utilize current technology, but also utilize the systems that we already have built. And I think your platform, I know we're going to dig in a little later about what that is, answers some of those questions and puts us on the right path. When you and I first met, we just literally started talking about homelessness and really how that's impacting not only our lives, but the larger community, and and the question kept coming up, how can we effectuate change? And so I'll stop there on my intro, only other to say that, I'm a serious student. So I'm wrapping up a master's in public policy on December 12th of this year. Then I'll be jumping right into a PhD program on public policy, and really looking at underserved communities and how we can build and get economic development to support people that are normally either left out or are underrepresented in our society today.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for your service. I don't say that lightly. So
absolutely,
and thank you for your service and what you did in the military. But this is an important part of it. Thank you for your service in general, right?
Yes,
I mean, you're and one of the things, I talked to a friend the other day, and just I'm just frustrated with what's going on. And so capitalism just fits within everything's within the institution now.
Yes.
And not to bag on capitalism, but it's just, and you had shared something with me, which we'll dig in, but it's one of the words that I've been playing with on the framework is that there's curators. So in the framework it's effectively a website, and you're taking experiences and you're creating experiences, and then you are curating them. You're deciding which experiences are good for the people. Then there's the participants, and the participants that come to the framework and come to the website and engage. So my thing is when I look at a lot of websites, even the websites, and not to trust me, I want to make sure I'm not bagging on anybody or any institution. It's
understood.
The way things are, but everything is within. When I say platform, we're a framework. It's
Yeah.
everything is inside these, they're inside the institutions and participants. So participants is a homeless person. A participant is a doctor who wants to help. A
Mhm.
participant is you
Sure.
that wants to help. It's me, a super nerd that's a
Mhm.
recruiter that wants to
Sure.
help. And I'm not my thing is, which is so funny with me, I'm not even a coder. So I just use harness Gen AI, and I was
Yeah.
tired of complaining about stuff. And so it's what I'm really like to do, what I really engaged with you on
Hmm.
is this notion of we need to meet people where they are.
Yes.
We need to be outside of the institution, and there's phenomenal people that are helping that are in
Hmm.
institutions. But I've been going through some things myself and trying to we all go through things and
Absolutely.
asking for help. And
Hmm.
the one thing, and I actually did it for two things. I did for a little bit for my health, but myself, but I also wanted to serve as an observer. The things that I've been trying to do is I wanted to really try to tackle these problems, but I wasn't in the trenches. So I wanted to see what's going on.
Sure.
And a
We
lot
can
of
talk about
this, it's again behind the institution is, but we should all be participants. So let's just talk about this real quick. There's just kind of dig into it. You had shared with me Ubuntu Village. I'm going to
it.
share
Hmm.
this with you right now,
Sure.
and let's just kind
Let's
of
put it
dig
on the
into.
screen. Let's talk about it.
Yep, I'm going to share it right now. Okay, and there it is. So let's kind of tee this up by talking about why does this strike you? Why does because you were talking about you're going to bring this to your
Sure.
community.
Well, back up a little bit. A well-known judge here in our local community sent me this roughly 2 weeks ago. This is a program, Ubuntu, out of New Orleans. They put this in place there, and he was asking if we can find any traction to bring that to Lafayette, Louisiana. Um, when I looked at what they offered, and I thought about our conversations, Paul, and how just like you said, we need to meet people where they are, prioritize the development and build relationships. I think that's key and important, and make sure we have the right resources and resource coordination in place. Your project, your application, I think really looks at all these points in a serious way and provides a framework online that I think that once fully developed will be something that's transparent and something that can work, and it's at the ground level. It's really meeting people at where they are, but bringing in, like you said, the various participants from law enforcement to mental health professionals to service providers, all in a pod or in a singular place where all of those folks securely can exchange various documents or requests or needs for those that they're seeking to help. So, that caught my eye with that program because it's literally somewhat close to what we're talking about. And just let me tell you a little bit about my local community and the needs here
Yes, yes, please.
regarding homelessness. So, when you talk about the homelessness issue in Lafayette, Louisiana, Lafayette being a municipality between Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I'm really 2 hours out of New Orleans, right off of I-10, intersect I-10 and I-49. A lot of different rural communities and small communities surround Lafayette, Lafayette being the most prosperous in regards to finance. It's an old oil town, so oil and gas was big here. And as you know, oil and gas is something that's somewhat gone away. So
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of loss of wealth or a lot of
Mhm.
folks that have moved away. And that has caused a lot of distress within just opportunities for employment and jobs within this area. So folks have to be creative. But that also creates a vacuum where some folks are just not able to escape poverty or necessarily homelessness. So we have various entities. The first one, the Catholic Charities, St. Joseph's Diner. Just look at what they do from a daily basis. They literally feed 700 to 800 meals a day.
Mhm.
That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They house roughly 165 people every night. and all their beds are full. They have a women's shelter, a men's shelter, and also one that does the feeding. But every bed is taken literally um, before the morning is out every single day. This has exacerbated the issue because our local, well, not necessarily our local, but our state government has pulled the Diners Main or Catholic Charities main funding source, which was $1 million that they would get every year in their budget to support their homeless operations and their feeding operations. The governor took that away this year. So we're seeing a larger crisis. Once you tack on COVID and the effects of COVID, the after effects of that, and then you look at the different weather events, the hurricanes that we've experienced, you have a larger fluctuation of homelessness. And we're seeing that every day on the street. Like I shared with you before, my personal home, I live downtown area. I live literally 2 blocks from this shelter that I'm talking about.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I moved here intently to help not only deal with this issue, but deal with gentrification and also deal with other issues that I felt was critical in this community. This is where I live now is where my grandparents lived and my father lived. And I moved here so I can help try to support the community where I live. So the housing issues continue to be big. We literally just wrapped up, meaning the city and town wrapped up a round of meetings with consultants, really looking from homelessness to house and how do we get there. I shared some of that feedback and documentation with you, and you can see from the notes, they literally speak to duplication of services, not necessarily having enough providers in the know, all things that I feel like, the project that we're working on can address. I'm happy to be part of this, knowing that this is transformational work.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So we talk about the symptoms of homelessness. We talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's why we're so closely aligned, because we both agree that we've got to investigate the causes.
Yes.
And now causes obviously a rent and prices and things like that. But to me, there is a deep and resonant cause that
Mm-hmm.
is not really addressed to the full extent, and that's mental health mental health.
Absolutely. Yes.
And my thing is where I talk about bringing from within the doors of institutions, bringing this on the street. It's actually bringing up mental health
Yes.
into the conversation. Because I went on the Lafayette website,
Okay.
the government website, and I saw a page because I said, okay, this is interesting. Lafayette. I wonder what they're,
Uh-huh.
I mean, when you look at the big picture, well, go to the .org or
Sure.
.gov for the city that we're talking about. And they don't have a page on mental health. They have a page on disabilities. And again, I want to make sure that anybody who listens to this, there's no judgment, there's no accusation, nothing, because
This is where we are.
I understand how difficult things are. I mean, these are not blaming at all. These are conversations to allow things to come out into the open. Is that because to me, there is nothing more important than mental health and
Right.
not mental illness. I mean, there's disorders and things like that because everybody suffers from some form of mental.
Sure. Sure.
To have a healthy mind
Mm-hmm.
means that you can cope with things.
Mm-hmm.
When a hurricane comes and ravages a community and a person's there that's suffering from PTSD from military service,
Sure.
and then they've got a bad luck with a bad interview. I mean, there's just millions there's just all these data points that can hit somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about we're both godly men
Yeah.
and I believe in Christ. And if you don't have those tools, whatever those tools are, it's about actually being able to cope. And then so what
Mm-hmm.
happens if you don't have if you don't have a mental state that's healthy enough and something happens, and then everything else can cascade.
Sure.
And that's where the people end up on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I argue, I mean, when you look at every person, and whether they even, because some people are homeless, want to be homeless. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And I respect that. But, is that a healthy mind that's actually making that decision?
Correct.
And not to judge that person, because that's the last thing we need to do. And here's my take on it. we need to have conversations. We need to
Hmm.
have understanding, and we need to have boots on the ground, not boots in the office. And that's where the framework comes into play, because of the framework on that side of it came out of my frustrations. I told you
Sure.
before, in the city of Mesa, I tracked their homelessness issue, and I've
Okay.
I've always had um, an issue with homelessness. And even
Hmm.
back in my, I'm 60 years old, so I've been around, I'm long in the tooth. I've been around for a while. My college paper at university, and I don't think I told you this. I don't think went into this detail, is that I wrote a paper on homelessness
Okay.
for my professor, and I made a video of it. We're talking 1986,
Oh,
and
wow.
I made a video of me going through rubbish in the trash and pretending to be a homeless person. So I called it safety shelter aid for transients. And
Okay.
one of my first experiences, I talked to another person that was in the graduate program, and I said, I just wrote this paper, but I would like to be involved with it to somehow. And he basically just laughed me off, and he said, "No, we do serious work here." And
Hmm.
ever since, and I've always felt that. I mean, my thing is, my biggest problem is I don't stick with things as much as I should. I should have stuck with that. I should have gone to the next person and fought for it. And with this, fast forward 2 years ago, the city of Mesa, I really, with what I was writing about, I hadn't really went into build mode yet, but I was just like, I want to understand the homeless community, because I was at the time working as a marketing director for a
Okay.
motorcycle dealership in Mesa, Arizona. And I saw how the people were treated there. And I mean, it's really, really pretty bad. And
Oh,
I
wow.
worked right in that area. And I just wanted to do something about it. I felt bad about just, everything about me is just talk and talk and talk. It's like so I tried to help a homeless person. I think I told you about that. Her name was Yvonne,
Hmm.
and a Native American woman, who, I didn't tell you this, but in talking to her, something like 7 people in her immediate family were killed from COVID, had
Oh,
died from
wow.
COVID. And it just breaks your heart. So I tried to help her, and I found out she went to this shelter, and this shelter was a little bit nefarious. So, it's where but what it is, and when I was talking to her, and I was trying to say, where are you getting your meds? Who are you talking to with your meds? And I even tried to call a lady that she gave me the phone number so I could find out about her meds. And the lady wouldn't talk to me. And I could understand that. I can understand that. But here's the
Sure.
thing: when all these things are trapped behind these paywalls and
Hmm.
institutional walls, and I understand people need their privacy,
Hmm.
but if we can't just help each other and engage with each other, and that's the thing, that what happened with you when you said solid pods, and where I knew that you were real,
Hmm.
because you made the math on that. You made
Yeah.
the math on the fact of the solid pods and with this community. No,
Well,
no, not many people would do that, because first,
well,
not many people would understand solid pods, but you did the math, and I was like, wow, that's impressive.
like you stated, and you said, hey, you wrote a paper on homelessness, and I wrote one too, and I kind of shared some of those thoughts and really lined up with what you just said. And I'll read a little bit. One of them was, by us incorporating a wide range of services and strategies to tackle the problem, communities would no doubt see a reduction in duplication of services and also be in a better position to help identify and manage more individuals that might need help. Secondly, which I thought was very, very important, that when we empower marginalized communities, especially the homelessness, to participate and advocate for themselves, Paul, like what your system is actually trying to do, help folks advocate for themselves, it shifts that dynamic. It
Yeah.
literally shifts that dynamic from one of charity to one of justice. And it
Definitely.
empowers that individual to seek that help. And if they're going through some mental health crisis or things like that, there's a system already built around them that's not behind a paywall, that's not behind a corporate wall, that's allowing these providers or these participants, either health, um, healthcare, mental health, police, and other resources. It allows them to help that person in a one-on-one stream of support that I think would be better served for the individual, but also for that service provider, because they are developing one-on-one relationships with their participants, what which I feel is the best method to really help somebody that needs help.
And you said, I mean, there's a key word that is so important, marginalization. And people don't really, there's you would go look at somebody and you're having a coffee and you're in Starbucks and you look around and you wouldn't believe, in my mind, of people maybe feeling that they're marginalized where
Sure.
you wouldn't think just by looking at them.
Sure.
You know, it's like that soft. I mean, and then you look at certain communities of people that have been marginalized for, you know what I'm talking about, been
Yes.
marginalized for
Sure.
hundreds of years. I mean, that is certainly a major thing, but it's also, it's marginalization to me means they're not heard.
Correct.
And they're not heard in the fact, and this is the thing that I've been arguing about. When you read my book, it's potential. The word of tapping into potential is everywhere. When my son was 10 years old, we're at a baseball game, and this is how weird I am. Weird dad. You're girl dad, I'm weird dad.
Sure. That's
But I said, Vaughn, look around. What do you see? And you know, this 10-year-old kid's like, Dad, what are you talking about? I see every single person here has potential. Every single person here, 40,000 people. We don't know their stories. And then, but there's a lot of them have been stepped on, have been marginalized. So you bring up those words, and you know, it could be a welfare mother. It could be a mother that actually has a CEO husband that's being abused that we don't know about. I mean, it's everywhere. But the thing is, when these problems are trapped within us, and then the solutions are trapped within institutions and grants, and again, I'm not judging, but everything is trapped. And so my thing with what I wanted to do with the framework is that, and where you, like I said, you did the math on solid pods, because I learned from you. That was a thing. It's like, okay, I didn't make that connection to the level you did. I've always wanted other people to be around this, because I'm not some genius. I'm some dude that just wants to help, you know, and you know, I have a bachelor's degree, but that's the extent. I'm a recruiter, for God's sake. So, you know, I'm not anything special, and I don't want to be special, but I am a curious sort. I've always been very, very curious. And so when I was reading back some of my essays in my book, I thought that, you know, it's just, I talk about these problems, and then when Gen AI hit, I was like, okay, now I can start to build these things. And it's the fact of when I talk about the curator and I talk about the participants, is we can give people a voice, right? So we can give them a voice, but we can give them a voice as opposed to posting on X or posting on Instagram or posting on Facebook. It's like, have a conversation with your local police officer or your local clergy person, right? Have a conversation and, you know, ask, and you'd be surprised. I mean, when I even started building this, because the funny thing is that when we first met, I didn't really have the framework. I didn't have anything that I could show anybody. And then I said, well, let's meet next week. And then I had to cancel it and bring it back a week, because I started to really dig into it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. But when this started, and I do feel that God is in our
absolutely
path, you know, between you and I, not saying that anybody that doesn't believe I'm just saying you and I are locked in on that, and I feel really good about it. And so I believe that God kind of brought you into this conversation to say the word solid pod to me. But when I started to build this and thinking about our conversations, and I put the police officer there because you were talking about Lafayette, right? I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about a police officer talking to a homeless person.
Well, look, they do it every day. They make judgment calls every day. They have to decide, hey, is this person somebody that we need to bring in, or how we can support? But look, the reality is, when I think about it, Paul, especially for my local community, I see where folks, meaning the general population, look at marginalized communities, especially the homeless, in a silo, in a separate manner, because I've seen with my own eyes where this community will support a no-kill shelter for animals, and spend millions and millions of dollars to build that up, but we won't put the same energy into supporting the homeless issue or tackling that in a real way. Um, Folks are more inclined to give funding to support other things outside of the homeless, which population is always the least one getting funding, at least in this community. I want to help change that perception. I want to help bring it back to one-on-one, where folks can help people and meet them where they are, regardless if you're a police officer, if you're a social worker, a mental health professional, or if you're some guy like myself that's running around with three, trying to figure out how to move them forward and provide a clear path to them. How can we all work together and do that and bring people in that want to help? Like you said, this is not something that is created in a silo. I'm very appreciative that, I met you, but more importantly, that you're literally taking my ideas and incorporating them into what you're building, and we're building something specific for the Lafayette, Louisiana community. I literally shared that with my neighbor, who was our former coterie chair, which is our neighborhood organization. Matter of fact, last week I just was elected the new coterie chair here for my neighborhood, meaning that I'm basically over our neighborhood organization. We get some funding, little funding from the city to really build and promote, but I'm in the community that has and deals with the most impact of the homeless issue. So I'm really looking forward to introducing this tool, this framework, to my local community, to my coterie, which is Laplace Coterie, which is the oldest coterie or oldest neighborhood organization within the city of Lafayette, to effectuate change. So if that takes us 6 months or 6 years, I know that when we complete it, that the community and all the stakeholders will be in a better place, because it's, with the use of technology, something that I see, even our homeless population, the majority of them have phones. They have devices.
People don't realize that.
Yeah, and so providing them access or providing them a framework where their mental health needs, their personal needs, any types of needs that they have is housed in a location where others can assist them, I think is a powerful tool, Paul. It's a powerful tool that's going to go a long way.
Well, and this is the one thing that, and I talk to my son about this all the time, is intent versus action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go up there and you can say a bunch of stuff and then you do something different. And what I really want to hold to with the framework is, and that's why I'm real sensitive about raising money for it. My whole plan with the framework is that I want to build it, and as limited as I am, but I don't want, first of all, I'm going to run it, but anybody can take what I built and then go do their own thing.
Open source.
Yeah. It's all free and open source. And there's a difference between open source and free and open source. Free and open source allows the editing. So whenever Facebook says that they've got open source, I just I always laugh.
Understood.
Because what they do is they put the code behind. It's like, okay, is your algorithm open source? And can people tune the algorithm for their own needs? No. It's a joke. But free and open source is like, that's a tractor tool. I'll show you in a little bit, the filter tool. I envision that I want to build it, and then anybody can use this and use the code for their own use, and they can edit it, they can manipulate it. The only thing that I'm saying that, on the bottom side, here, I'll share this with you.
Yeah, share your screen, because I would love for you to talk a little bit about what you share with me, just about being free and open and the other requirements that you're saying, hey, these are bedrock principles that for anybody to be able to use this, you have to abide by these principles for use.
Yes. And so you can see the screen right there, right?
Yeah. So tell me what I'm seeing. So when other folks see this, I've already seen some of it, but just tell them, hey, when they see this, what are they seeing from top to bottom, and how does this work?
Okay, so, and I came up with this actually after our conversation, this little tagline here: ask for help for yourself, your loved one, or a perfect stranger. What can be accomplished when we work together? So,
okay,
I want to set the tone. And again, when I say about I want to build this, and I don't really want to take outside money because, like I
Hmm.
told in my email to you, is that if I take outside money, I feel like I'm going to have to chase outside money. And so the let's go through this. So pathways for
Sure.
mental health, it's a framework. So, and I envision this. I say filtered location Lafayette.
Hmm.
So on a platform, this would not when the Lafayette would not. So what I envision possibly is to work with you and then the Lafayette community to find some open source developers and let's build an implementation for Lafayette.
Sure.
And it's like, why would somebody like me want to build something where I can't make anything off of it? Well,
Sure.
I'm gonna, like I told you, I'm gonna build my own thing where I can make money off of affiliate commissions,
Hmm.
and if somebody ever wanted to hire me as a consultant, whatever. But I don't want to control the platform. I actually refuse to do that, and because what's going to happen as soon as somebody, oh, the city of Lafayette, it's like, okay, well, let's build this. It's like, okay, and then, okay, here comes the ads and here comes everything else. I just,
Some big corporate.
yep, yep. And it doesn't make those people bad. It doesn't make those
No.
people bad, but intent versus action. I want to follow up with that. You know, I've made it through 60 years of life without having to sell my soul. And I'm
Understood.
not going to do it. I've got another 20 to 30 to fight, and I'm going to
Gotcha.
maintain that. And, you know, I do okay. I don't need $1 billion. You
Right.
know, I want to make good money, and I would love to make money on my own where I can just do this full time. But so when you're talking about, let's talk about this here real quick.
Okay.
When, you know, the I've created some pages here, and this is not driven by a database, so they're all flat pages basically.
Understood.
I'll go down here. This is a deep current framework. Okay, here where you're talking about, let's talk a little bit about the principles, right?
Okay.
Built on free and open source software. No logins required other than for private exchanges, which would be the solid pods, right?
Okay.
So a lot of times websites will, to be able to have additional benefits, you know, log in and subscribe, right? It's not going to be required. Anything that you see on this website, in my opinion, is going to be available. Now, you could go and build your own thing, but what I'm going to do is that if you carry this link on the bottom, Deep Inquiry Framework, it means that you're following the principles. If you
Understood.
don't, I'm going to kill the link, and you
Got
can do whatever you want with it, and then you can put ads or whatever you want and pop-ups. But that's these are the principles. So the principles are no behavioral tracking. So you come to the website, you come to the anything that's a diff. I call them diff for short, DIF, Deep Inquiry Framework. There's not going to be any behavioral tracking. So there can be cookies, but the cookies are not going to be on your computer to track your behavior, what you're doing on the
Understood.
site, so that I can manipulate you to be able
Hmm.
to sell you things, or more importantly,
Push you away.
sell your activity to somebody else.
That's
And
the world we're in now. So
oh, and that's everywhere, man. That's
I
everywhere.
appreciate this.
Yep. No pop-ups. Okay, don't even get me started on pop-ups, but they're passive pop-ups, right? So if I click on something and there's a pop-up, that's fine. But if I'm going around the site and I'm trying to engage and have deep engagement, I don't want anything popping up. So I'm not going to put pop-ups. And you have pop-ups on your deep inquiry framework, your diff, then I'm going to kill the link. No third-party ad networks. So, you know, I'm not saying that with a you know, Lafayette wants to be able to monetize something.
Hmm.
And that's fine, but it's not going to come through a network. It's going to come with whoever the curator. So here's the thing with Lafayette, this is what I envision. I'm curious for your feedback.
Okay.
Is that you have maybe somebody, or maybe you're the curator, somebody from deep within the city, and you can
Hmm.
have groups of curators. So, you know, here's um, um, like this, Emily Davis.
Okay.
She's the curator, so she could be. She works for the. I took all these pictures. I just made this
Understood.
stuff up. So
Understood.
she's from Lafayette Health and Human Services Department. She holds a master's degree. So
Mhm.
she's going to curate this for the city of Lafayette, and then
Explain
she's going.
curating for our viewers. Explain what do you mean by curating? When Emily Davis is curating, what is she doing?
Okay, so when you talk about first of all insights, okay,
Okay.
articles. So she's going to go out and find articles that are highly relevant to the community that she wants to serve through this diff, through this deep
Okay.
inquiry framework. Reviews of something.
Mhm.
It could be, and what since this is deep inquiry, it could be a PDF that she shared from a council, like you had shared that PDF with me.
Sure.
I mean, why not share things like that of things that are going deep inside the community? She's the curator, though. So here's my thing, and she could have groups. I envision that you have groups of curators and they're
Okay.
working together. But there's no algorithms that are deciding on the articles. It's
Okay.
human beings. And
Yes.
those, and then what the attractor does, which I'll show you in a bit, that's the filter. That leverages the ability to discover these things. But and then it could be her own article. Maybe she's getting her doctorate and she wrote a thesis on homelessness. Okay, she puts it on there, and though she's created it, you can create and curate.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, and then and the most important part is what she's doing is when she gets in here, she tags things. So, and then through my communication with you and your community, I'm going to start to learn because what I want to do, I mean, this is the only one, just to let you know, if you want to do
Yes.
this, I don't want
Yeah.
to focus on anything else for a
Understood.
nonprofit than you
Understood. And
and
I'm
your
happy.
community.
I'm excited for that. That we're the focus. We're the pilot here in
Yep.
Lafayette, Louisiana, Paul. So I'm glad that we're building a pathways for mental health specifically for this location. I think again, being a mid-sized um, um, community, one that's attractive to a lot of rural communities that are around us within the 30-mile radius. Folks normally gravitate to this area. In my community, specifically the Laplace Coterie or the downtown area, we're really close to the majority of the services. And as you know, our unhoused, our homeless population, they traditionally want to stick close to where services are being provided for them.
Well, and see, Emily, the fictional Emily, is somebody who's from the community. And
Mm-hmm.
so here's the thing I want to help with you and with I feel that your community is going to be able to help me even before we
Okay.
build anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the next probably 2 months, it's just you and I talking and me arguing with
Yeah.
ChatGPT about how to build these things because we
Yeah.
don't need. I want this to come from deep within the community because here's the thing: when Emily creates an article,
Mm-hmm.
it's garbage in, garbage out. So I
Yeah.
want to be able to create it to where she creates the most interesting tags that she feels the community will relate to. And when you see down here, you say words, right? That's what
Yeah.
I'm is going to be for the attractor. I'll talk about the tracker in a little bit.
Okay.
Here's a clergyman. So the words for him and God and faith. I mean, here's the thing. I don't even know what this is yet. And it's almost like it's none of my business until it comes from the
Absolutely.
community. You know what I mean?
Understood. Understood that it's personalized to the community with advocates from the community, speaking the language of the community. No, I
Yes.
get it, and it makes perfect sense because it's not cookie cutter. It's personalized. It's supporting and appreciating the cultural differences of different places and people, because who can talk better um, to someone than someone from their own community or they can relate to. So and again, that's back to that one-on-one ground level approach. So we're
And
still on
and
target.
and see, you're a Marine, right? So you can
Yes, sir.
understand the appreciation of local intel and
Yes.
and looking at threats and opportunities, right? So Emily is boots on the ground, looking at threats and opportunities and talking to you and
Mm-hmm.
your group. And I say we probably spend at least maybe a couple of months of trying to figure out. Me personally, I'm going to build the database functionality over the next
Sure.
month or so, but we really need to figure out what it is. What is this? And so now talking about solid pod. So I've got Regimen Gary just made it up, and I apologize for lifting this guy's picture. When I make this
Sure.
live, I'll probably do some fictional pictures, but I want people to see that, right? It's a
Right.
local police officer that, and the police. Believe me, there's been some issues there, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of goodwill if we really look for it
Sure.
and invite it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if there's a police officer that wants to consider himself or herself a mental health advocate and they want to do a little, not, it's not for everybody. I'm telling you that. Not everybody's going to want to do this.
Sure.
But here's the thing. Maybe once they start to do it and they see that regimen is actually helping, then maybe there'll be a couple of more. And the last thing I want with this personally, I don't want this to be wildly popular and it'll kill it. I want it to be very small, very slow, very organic, and then let build it. And then if deep inquiry frameworks explode, and I would rather there be a million deep inquiry frameworks, and then
Understood.
all those people are doing their jam, and that so. Now let me show you this. So we're talking about
Right.
solid pods, right? So imagine you've got Regiment Sergeant Gary and Penny, and then Emily is just behind the scenes curating the articles. So now we've got Sergeant Gary and Penny, and they're talking to a homeless person. I'm calling him John Doe. All
Okay.
right. Here's the private exchange. It's through a solid pod. Now, by the way, I have not talked to InRept, who runs solid
Understood.
pods. Um, they don't even know I'm working on this. And my thing is, and I do feel that this can be built. I might be missing some of the dynamics of it, but
Mhm.
like I told you before, is that I don't even really want to talk to them
Yeah.
about it until we have a better idea of what this is. And then
Understood.
somebody like you or possibly the mayor talking to them,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I'm just a nobody, and
Hmm.
I'm fine with that. But so just to be clear that I'm not an expert on solid pods, but I've been following them for 6 years. I follow their team on GitHub. I've talked to a couple of them and even projects they're building in the Netherlands.
Okay.
So I know enough about it to be a little dangerous. So anyhow, yeah, Penny, if you look at the kind of the provenance here, permissions granted. So this
Hmm.
is a thing on a solid pod. We're talking about private exchanges.
Okay.
So Penny comes across John Doe
Hmm.
on the street, and
Hmm.
she says, and they don't have to share the picture. I just wanted to be able to give them an idea.
Understood.
And she said, "So what's going on?" Starts the conversation. So and even really, I don't know your thoughts about this, but do you need help? Well,
Yeah.
yes, but let's
Okay.
let's go a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
What's
Yes.
going on?
Yes.
What are you working on? What are you
Mhm.
doing? Not even what you're doing or judging, because it's the fact that, and here's the thing, I'll learn from your community. It's the language. I don't have the language because I'm not in your community.
Understood.
We need to build this
Mhm.
from the language. So, however Penny engages with John, then, she shares information with him.
Mhm.
And then he comes back, and then now you get Sergeant Gary on this. John, I can arrange safe transportation,
Mhm.
and also scheduling a health checkup. And first of all, solid pods are super encrypted.
Mhm.
Um, here's the difference
Meaning
with solid pods.
security is super tight, meaning that, hey, only John Doe, Sergeant Gary, and Penny, um, also Miss Armstrong, they're the only ones are seeing this and experiencing this,
Yep,
right? That's when
yep.
you
And none
okay.
of their activity on the deep inquiry framework is tracked. That nobody knows what they're doing. Because here's the thing about solid pods. I'm envisioning that every single piece of data on a deep inquiry framework is in a solid pod, even the
Understood.
articles. Because
Okay.
I did meet Tim Berners-Lee. I actually asked him that question when
Hmm.
I went to a conference in California with Douglas Engelbart, celebrating Douglas Engelbart. And it was just a meet and greet, and took a picture and then shook his hand. And I
Sure.
asked him that question: how extensive can these be? I mean, can these incorporate into social media?
Yes.
Um, can they go across websites? Can they go into chats? And he said yes. So
Oh,
that
well.
was literally 5 years ago. So, and they've been building ever since. Um, but here's the thing: you can, what I envision is that they can have a group of conversations around articles, and then they can share those groups of articles only with one person. You can't really do
Got it.
this with you can do that with Slack,
Hmm.
but I'm talking about a very, very tight. I tried to build this in with a platform I built years ago called Choir.com, and we didn't really have the ability to do it, but we envisioned all of it. And one of the things I
Okay.
talked to my partner about the time, and he even looked at me like I was a little weird. I said, literally, what's the difference between an email, a text, a spreadsheet, and and a Word document?
How
There's
is the
nothing.
live? No.
They're instances, and you
Yeah.
share the instance. And so when we started talking about it, my partner Tim McLean, he was actually I have a podcast with him. Brilliant, brilliant guy.
Okay.
And we were kind of talking about things and how could you do that? And to me, this is kind of that element of that is that these are instances. And it could be where they're recording a video in that instance, and you're recording, and then they could possibly share this little thread with 100 people. But when they're sharing it with 100 people, it's the instances between Penny and John Doe. So there might be things with Penny and John Doe that are shared that Sergeant
Sure.
Gary
Don't
doesn't have
see.
access to.
Understood.
Yeah, and this is a little bit where this gets a little bit wonky is my ability to really understand this. So this won't
Hmm.
be right away. We're gonna,
Right.
once we get the solid team involved, and I want to manage expectations. I don't want to make a bunch of promises. It's just ideas, right? But it's the idea of boots on the ground and meeting people. So one of the things I told you that I talked to a police officer running a homeless program in Mesa, Arizona, and he ghosted me. It's like once we get these things up, and I didn't even know what the deep inquiry framework was 2 years ago when I was in Mesa. I wanted to write an essay, but I wrote about the fact is like, these advocates. I was calling them advocates back then. Is like, okay, and then you put a QR code on a coffee shop, and that coffee shop then allows people to be able to engage with the community and find out who those communities are, tune the community. So that you're talking to John Doe on the street, you point your camera at the QR code, and then you then come here and we'll talk about the attractor and you find the people that are boots on the ground that are most related to that person, and then you share those resources with that person. And now you've got a tunable event. And even my language, even to me at times, I think that I'm just way so far out there. But
No, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense, Paul. I think it ties together. Like you said, just you know, us talking through it, I think is very healthy. I think it's going to further develop and refine and focus, the energy on where it's going. But I'm following exactly where you are. Um, you know, the critical piece, I think, and I want at least the novice or just the basic person to understand that, hey, this is a secure platform. These pods are secure in nature, where your information or their information won't be shared outside of that, and even within that pod, there's levels of access to information depending on who you are. So, like you said, the policeman may not be talking to the social worker, or may not have access to either one of their documents unless that's shared by the receiving party. And I'm assuming that's that homeless person. And again, that's empowerment. That's saying, hey, look, you're still in control. And like I said, if we can change perspective, even individual perspectives of their self, because you know, folks want to feel empowered. Folks want to be in part of something. Folks want to be, you know, they want to hand up, but they want to participate in the discussion and the decision making. And this application, this system does that. So this framework actually does that. So no, I'm following you fine.
well, and you do, and you actually, I'm telling you, just for the fact that you got it so early on, well, let me tell you what Solid did
All right.
in Belgium. I think I told you a little bit about that
Mm-hmm.
in Brussels, and um, it's a community because you talk about duplication. When you talked about duplication before, it's like, wow, that is such a freaking good point.
Mm-hmm.
Is what they did in Flanders,
Okay.
Belgium. Um, so they worked and what they did, and when I emailed the team, I actually talked to the team that was building that, and they emailed me
Okay.
back. I wrote an essay on it. It's in my book, and they actually replied enough to reply back, and I just said how important the work you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did is that they brought into the city where people could actually the citizens could have a pod, and that pod could have their driver's license information, social security information, applications for welfare, applications, blah blah
Sure.
blah. And then those pods are secure so they can be shared with other organizations in the city. So that's the same thing that John Doe could do, right? You
And
could have
and there
John
and there
Doe's.
not to cut you off, but a critical piece I want you to talk a little bit about it is really that standard data. So everybody has standard information. I think that we may have touched on this, and I may be off, but if I'm in a pod, I got my standard information. I don't have to refill out all these state
Yeah,
forms or
yeah,
that, because that's going to
yeah,
automatically, and that for somebody that's having a mental health crisis or
yeah.
somebody in need, that's some stuff that they don't have time or the
No,
red tape to really deal with or to follow with.
no.
But you're supplying a secure place that they can access their mobile device or some other device to access that information. That's a powerful way to not only store and protect, but provide rapidly to folks that need it. And so, again, 6 months, 6 years, I'm thinking we have state organizations and the like plugged in to the framework to understand that, hey, this is framework data. You can trust it. We know it's clean. We know it's good. We know it's secure. And they will build processes themselves to support the framework.
Well, and here's the thing, and what you will be surprised about once we get to that point, it might take 2 months, but if we leverage this and we get the people, a lot of this is already built, Ravis. Ravis, I tell you right now, a lot of this is already built. It's called structured data. So it's RGA. It's not that complicated, but what you have to do is you have to think it through, because if it's not implemented correctly, and then you get too many chiefs in the pot here, I'm telling you, that's what's going to destroy the whole thing. Because if you commodify this, it is going to be a mess. You got to have a couple of core people that are able to make decisions. And the thing is, if it's a lot of it's from open source, because as soon as you get $1 million in to build something, then all of a sudden you're going to get a million. You're going to get
million ideas.
Yeah, no.
Changes, yes.
Yeah, and preaching to the choir, right? Because I that's why I don't want to chase money on this. But if I could work with some people on the solid team, and we could really think it out, because when you're with your team that you'll have. Because I'm telling you right now, somebody going through a mental health crisis, it's not for the fact that they don't even have time. That puts them in a darker place, because they're mentally confused as it is, and they've got the world coming down on them, and then they have a problem with the noisiness. That's the mental problem, is the noisiness. And then you add, it's like, well, fill out a form and ask and then answer a questionnaire. It's like, no.
Can't do that.
Have a conversation.
That's the feeding. That's the feeding. Absolutely. That's the feeding. Throwing a clipboard and a pen and a paper in front of me is the feeding, knowing that there are 20 people that had to do the same thing in front of me. So I'm seeing that. Where's our response time rates? Where's our security and our data? So I see how it works.
Well, and here's another important piece of this, right? So the input, the output. The one thing that I'm envisioning, we talked about this before, because you had mentioned it, is what has to be built into the framework is some reporting tool to show the successes or the failures. I mean, here's the thing. You got to show the failures, man. You got to show the failures. We got to learn from the failures. There will be failures.
We need outcomes. We need outcomes. We got to understand what the outcomes are.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And it's got to be transparent. It's got to be transparent. And one of the things that I was thinking about doing is that if we ever do get to a point where,
let's say when we get to the point.
Yeah, we will. But the thing is, how involved am I going to be? So if the Lafayette builds this and they build off of it, I'm not going to, I don't know yet, really. I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't want to figure that out. But for things, so say, for instance, I do something on my own. I'm even talking about building a tool in there where it shows the transparency of the money that I've raised and what I'm spending the money on, because that is something that is incredibly missing on things, is the transparency. It's like, okay, I'm going to go build this. I'm going to do this, like intent versus action, right?
Yeah.
I want people to see that I'm, if I make money off of it, at some of these things I'm going to make money off of. I want to make money.
Sure.
I want to provide for my family. I want to feel good about it. I would love to finally make $1 off of my ideas, as opposed to spending money. But I want to be transparent about it. And I would recommend any organization that uses a diff as a core principle is that be a little transparent with what you're doing. If you're raising $100,000, then what are you doing with the money? And what are we going to? And so
that's inherently critical, especially when you have a lot of organizations. What I've seen, you got a lot of philanthropists and folks that want to help, that do support and do help. But then you have organizations that are top heavy, and then those resources don't necessarily trickle down to the folks that need it the most. So, being transparent, being open, being forthright in exactly where the money's going is a huge way to not only build support, but also capacity and get others involved, because, folks want to help. Like you said, we're God-fearing men. We know other God-fearing men and women in our community that want to support, want to help. We just got to provide them with the framework that, like you said, is transparent and open that they can support and believe in.
Yes, and here's the thing: is that we need to instill
True.
trust into this system
And,
of engagement,
mhm,
and we can. I think we're ready for it. I
mhm.
think it's not to be too big about this, but I think the human race is ready for
No, I
it.
agree.
And here's the thing: is I want to, and that's what the emergence is. I mean, the emergence is, and I haven't told you this story, but when
Okay.
I was going through,
Talk a
when
little
I
bit
went
about
through,
your book, The Emergence. Talk a little bit about it if you got.
well,
Give us a
yeah,
few
well,
minutes
okay,
about
so
it.
you got to think about my history and how I came into things. Is that I've always been a curious person. I back in when I the first thing because I wasn't even in college, I'm old enough to where in college PCs weren't as advanced and I wasn't
Yeah,
into computers at all.
sure.
But the minute I found out about the internet in 1992, um, and my wife even comments on that because I wanted to be a filmmaker, I wanted to be a
Understood.
musician, I'm a guitarist, but I
Hmm.
didn't pursue those things. I mean, it just completely took over my life. And when
I
because
was going to ask you if you can play that guitar behind you, or it was just a prop. Because look, I can go in my living room right now, and I have a bass guitar
Oh, you
that's sitting on
play?
the tone stand. I'm very little.
Oh
But look,
yeah.
I bought the bass. In a quick side story, I bought the bass because my daughters, one of my daughters, she plays the piano. She's been playing for the last 6 years. I believe this may be her seventh year playing. Very good. One of my other, and then my twins. One of them is a vocalist, so she sings. She sings
Oh,
almost every Sunday in church. So I'm
yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Other one, she plays the drums. So I got a set of drums in there too, in the living room. And I bought the bass so I can literally jam with them and learn with them, and say, hey, Dad doesn't know this, but I'm willing to spend the time and effort to learn, to support you guys. So that's a little quick story on my bass guitar and mine sitting there. But hey, I know you can play a tune. I can't.
Yeah, well, my mother bought, I've been playing for 45 years. I
Oh
should be a
wow.
lot better, but it's a really personal thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played in a band. I've had people, I had a friend wanted me to do a band, and it's medicine for me.
Sure.
And now it's actually for something for me to connect. And actually, I kind of purposely put it in there because I want to. I just to me, it's everything in life to me, and actually my walk with Christ in the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of years with my son, who's been helping me, is that I'm getting a better sense about kind of the resonance of the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
music to me it's just a vibration, and
Yes.
it's really important to me, and I'm okay. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
decent player, but I get more fulfillment of just me sitting here and playing than I don't share it.
Understood.
I really don't. And I recorded something. I've got a little channel where I share some of my
Well,
pieces.
maybe
I've
you need to
recorded a couple
record.
things.
Maybe you need to record some vocals or some music for the intro.
Oh,
Um,
I
you know.
have my, I have actually. If you listen to
Oh
my
wow.
podcast, that's
Uh-huh.
me on guitar.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah. So electric guitar. So, and I kind of went away from this. I didn't even want to. I don't know. I just wanted us to have a real conversation. I might do an intro, but yeah, if you look back historically on all my podcasts, that's me.
okay.
So I created that all from scratch. So music is an important part of
So
my
I
life.
jumped off of you talking about emergence, and I want to get back to that.
Well, yeah, and actually, it's really here's the thing. It's the vibrations, right? And I don't want to
Mhm.
get too weird about it, but when I heard of the internet in 1992, and then I heard about the documents in the cloud in
Mhm.
1999, I started hearing about cloud where you can collaborate.
Sure.
Uh, I really started to start thinking about things, and I started to get into technology around 2000 and wanting to build things, and I built some websites.
Hmm.
I formed Choir.com,
Okay.
and around 2006, that was me chasing these ideas. The idea was to be able to bridge people in to listen to people. So the whole acquired inquiry, that's the whole
Okay.
thing. I wanted to build a more or less a platform
Mhm.
back then for people to be able to ask questions and then to collaborate on answers. but we didn't know how to do that. So we tried to build a video network. And then I then wanted to build a social network and then a Stack and
Yeah.
Slack. I mean, and I was a mess. I was a
Yeah.
mess. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't grounded. I was chasing the $1 billion but the core of me was not about that. So I had this duality. So it was a absolute failure. I lost a bit of money. I put my tail between my legs and went into the safety of working at a motorcycle dealership with my friend. And then I had another friend there, Eric Montez, a great guy that when I was talking about some of these ideas, like with Quired, he goes, why aren't you doing that anymore? I was like,
That's right.
because I'm a loser. I'm just and he goes, no, man, you just keep that. Don't be a wimp. Don't be a wimp.
Yeah.
Keep at it. So I tried some other things. I was going to get the VR business. And then what I did is I had my wife was teaching me to meditate.
Okay.
And because it was in a dark place,
Hmm.
because I felt like I was just my potential. I didn't know where I belonged. I was still making money and working, but then
It
I
wasn't.
went onto a major meditation session.
Hmm.
And I meditated with God, and it sounds so weird, and I've talked about it before, is
Okay.
that I went to a bookstore and I prayed, I meditated, and I said, I'm going to walk in that store and I'm going to just lead me to put my hand on a book. And whatever that book is, that's going to guide me of what I'm going to do because I need to start to explore my potential. And this is
Understood.
probably in 2013, 14, maybe. Because I was at a little bit of a low point. And, low point for me is not woe is me. I'm still functional, highly functional, but just
Sure.
like I felt like I had something. God meant something for me to
Sure.
do and to help. I wanted to help. I always like to help.
You
So I
felt
go
like
to the
it wasn't in
store.
your purpose. You wasn't walking in your
No, I didn't
purpose.
have purpose. That's a great word. So I
Mhm.
went to the store and I went into the business section. It's like, why am this is not about business. But anyways, I went in there, I closed my eyes, I walked forward, and then I put my hand on a book and it was called Emergence, the connected city of ants. Stephen Johnson, I think is his name.
Oh, wow.
Get this wrong. I always forget. Well, I think his name's Stephen. Anyhow, I have a bad memory, by the way. I mean,
Understood.
something that's so pivotal, I should be able to remember that in a second. But I started reading that book and I said, this is exactly it. Because they talk about the fact of how ants use pheromones and how they communicate with each other. And they give instructions outside of the queen ant. And I thought, okay, this is exactly it. This is what I'm talking about, to be able to have people communicate with each other more effectively outside of centralized control. And so I started writing some essays because I have always had these ideas, and I wrote a little bit in the past, but then I wanted to just start writing about it. And
Hmm.
then I started to do that. And then all the while, the web, once,
Kept growing and changing.
oh man, just
Rapid
terrible.
speed, rapid
It just
speed.
you may as well just rip my heart out from the
Yes.
fact of, when I thought about the open web and what it was going to do for people and people of color, people of,
Yes.
Native Americans, of people
Limit
that
the
are
playing.
disabled, everybody, Appalachian, and income distressed white people. I mean, just
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
I thought it was going to bring the community together. And it's like, no, this is actually doing the opposite. This
Now
is
we got paywalls. Now we got paywalls. You got to
Yeah,
pay
and
for
then
the.
blockchain. I
That's
was
right.
into blockchains like that, and then they freaking put that into a monetary thing. It's like, dude, really, people, and I was really just as I was writing, and then I said, okay, I'm going to do a podcast on it. I'm gonna just start talking to people, and I did that, and then I was continuing to go through some things um, where I was working at the dealership, driving an hour in, an hour back
Oh,
every
wow.
day, a marketing director, and love the people there. Love
Sure.
one of my best friends working for them. It was
Hmm.
incredible, but I couldn't work. I just knew that I needed to do something. I needed to do
Sure.
something different. So I went and I decided that I needed to work remote.
Hmm.
Finally found a place where I'm working right now to this day.
Sure.
And which will give me, freed up my mind. It's like I needed to be able to then work on these ideas. So I was doing the podcast, and then I was just so incredibly frustrated when I was living with my sister in
Hmm.
Colorado for a bit in my transition to working
Hmm.
here with this
Hmm.
company. We have a communication problem. That was my last episode of the Emergence podcast because I was so frustrated So I went out there in Pueblo, Colorado, recorded myself. I don't know if you've watched that one yet, but
I
that's
haven't.
me saying, okay, I give up. I mean,
This is
that's
it.
literally me saying all these ideas, I give up.
Oh wow.
Here's the problem. Do whatever you want with it. I'm done. And I
Hmm.
even talked to my wife about it. It's like I can't keep on fighting these things and being frustrated with it. So then fast forward a few years, Gen AI hits, generative AI.
Hmm.
And I see that. And it's like, okay, all right, one more chance to depress me, but let's get into this again. And so I wrote the prologue to my book, and I told my wife, it's like, okay, now I'm going to be done with it, but I'm going to write a book of all my essays, of all this stuff I'm complaining about, and I'm going to put it out there. And then I promise I'm done. Because she would always think, this isn't necessarily good for your mental health to
You need to
keep on
close it
going
out.
after these
That's
things.
right.
I've always had people tell me, it's like, you're still working on those ideas? It's like, yeah, yeah, I'm that stupid. But
Yeah.
then I get to the it's like, there is something here because I don't know if they can put the genie back in the bottle with AI. With this generative AI, because I started playing with it early on when it hit.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't know. And so what I did is I wrote a prologue to my book. And that was to, okay, if we want to fix the communication problem, then we need to be the solution in all of us. And we need to harness it. And I'm not saying at all that generative AI is the only solution at all.
Hmm.
It's just my thing is that we need to be tool builders. Everybody needs to be a tool builder. That's my argument right now to this day. I'm a tool builder.
Okay.
And,
Nice.
I've got something I'm writing in my final essay, which is Deep Inquiry Framework for the book, that I want to publish through MIT Press. We'll see. Is I reflect back to a point in my childhood where I remembered I wanted to build a radio. And I was probably 9 years old. And I took it apart, but I never put it back together.
Understood.
So I'm what I'm trying to do is I'm going through this kind of deep spiritual thought about what
Hmm.
was that? Why wasn't I a builder? Why didn't I do the work? Because I always feel like even I just talk a lot. I just talk.
Hmm.
And I was tired of talking, writing a book. It's yep, 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 yep. And I talk about the homeless problem, but what have I done to help the homeless problem? I talk about it.
Right.
I'm
Right.
out there. I'm actually ladling soup. But
Yes. Yes.
here's the thing, and I have such a deep respect for people that do that, but
Hmm.
that's just not me. And I like to help. Believe me, I
Hmm.
want to help. And I've tried to volunteer. I've tried to volunteer. People don't even have I can't even give away my time. That's how bad it is. I literally can't. I have tried to volunteer, and I
Yeah.
just have such a hard time with it. But
Yes.
I reflect on God, and it's like, God's
Hmm.
got a purpose for me. He's got a plan for me.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, you were a pivotal part of that, because as I
Wow.
was building and I was thinking of building, it's like, why am I building it?
Mhm.
And my wife would tell me, it's like, you need to find a small little community and engage with them. And I was thinking about, because I'm working remote out here in St. Augustine, Florida, but I don't know anyone.
Right.
And anytime I talk to somebody, I'm always ghosted. I was worried I was going to be ghosted by you, to be honest with you, because
Oh no, no,
my
no.
entire life I've been ghosted.
Hey, look, if my word is bond, and
Yeah,
and
no,
and like I said, I brought this to you. You didn't
yeah,
bring,
that's exactly
you know
it.
what I mean? So I brought this to you. I opened up this whole thing myself.
Yeah,
Because again, what you're talking about, these solid pods and this framework, coupling mental health and homelessness, it's a critical issue. It's a critical issue nationally. It's definitely a critical issue in Lafayette, Louisiana. And to be honest with you, it's refreshing to see new ideas or a new approach to tackling an old problem.
yeah,
Homelessness is not a new issue. It's not a
no,
new problem. Lack of affordable housing is not a new issue. It's not a new problem. But what are we doing, like you said, to address it? Um, you know, God gives us a certain skill set, Paul, and I say that all the time. Everybody's not made to go out and ladle soup and stand there. Some people need to be thinking about, hey, what framework were we building to get those volunteers to come to do that
yes,
labeling of the soup?
yes,
Or how are we following up to see the effectiveness of why do we even choose soup? Who's making those types of determinations or calculations and having those discussions? That's where you lie. That's where you are. So you're a framework builder. I call it that. To me, that's just as important as that person sitting in front of ladling that soup, because without you, there would be no process or nothing built. So, volunteers can come and participate. Building this framework, electronically, website on the cloud, secure. Nobody's doing that for the
Yeah,
undersized
they're
communities.
putting them behind platforms is what they're doing, and there's
Yeah, they're monetizing it, and not to
they're
cut you off.
monetizing it.
They're monetizing poverty. They're monetizing
Yep, yep,
homelessness. And to me,
yep.
those two things don't mix, because if the profit margins aren't high enough, well, that's going to be something that they're not going to offer. Or that's going to be something they're going to take off the website. Anything that's going to
Yep.
lower their proceeds, either from a stakeholder perspective or ownership, I just don't see our capitalistic society today reaching back and really trying to help people and meet them where they are.
Well, and here's the thing. This is the argument where I don't want money involved in this.
Okay.
I can make money off of it, but I really don't want, and here's the thing. Think about this. I mean, where the fact that you get it, I'm so impressed by you. I'm not just saying that because you came to me,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I've definitely felt where I'm invisible on these things, and for you to capture that, but more importantly, you understood it, but then you add to it, man. You're adding to it. You're adding to this at a much, much deeper level that I needed, because I am only, basically I'm building my radio is what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm building my radio, but I want to make the radios available where everybody is able to not just build it, but tweak it. So,
Mm-hmm.
Hitler built a bunch of plastic radios cheap to be able to distribute to the population. So,
Sure.
and then the only channel was his channel of propaganda. So, we got to be careful with the radios, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but here's the thing is, if we're all radio builders as opposed to radio distributors, you see what I mean? There's the difference. We're all building our own radio, man. It's different because then Hitler doesn't then take that and we're invested. And you mentioned something to me that was just so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about John Doe being actually a part of this. You're not
Mm-hmm.
just talking about helping John Doe.
Oh, no.
I didn't think that through. You're talking about John Doe being a part of this and coming to council meetings, and
I can be John Doe. I can be John Doe one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's literally how I look at this. So for me, if you involve every stakeholder, there's no way you're not going to come out of that with a clear understanding and a better grasp of not only the issue, but the solution, because you literally brought the person in that you're trying to help to decide, hey, what's a good solution? How can we get to a win-win here for you, the individual, and the community at a large? My community is no different than any other community in this country in this issue. Other countries, other places, they literally have, I'm talking about government, local government, they have departments or budgetary line items that support community development, supporting their homeless populations and, those that are in need of shelter. But there's little focus, there's little opportunity for service providers, police, mental health professionals, all of those to plug into something that's free, that's literally built for them to plug into. That's what you're doing. Yeah. That's what I see. That's what I initially saw off the bat. And I said, you know what? How can I get Paul to look at my community specifically? And let's try to build something where, at the end of the day, we'll own it, meaning Lafayette, Louisiana. Yeah. And like you said, it's customized specifically for us. So it speaks our language, but the framework or, the backbones behind it can be duplicated and ran across the country to other communities to build. And then, what your job's going to be? How can I make all these talk together, but still be separate and apart? Well, and there we go. And then now let's dovetail into the attractor now, because I want to talk about this, because this is the last piece of this, and we can start to wrap this up in a little bit. Sure. But you just hit it. So let me show you this, because this is
the biggest piece of the whole thing. And this is the pheromones, right? This
All
is
right.
the attractor is the
Right.
pheromones between the ants.
Got it.
And so you've got ants in Lafayette, Louisiana, you've got ants in Nebraska, you've got ants in Germany, you've got
Sure.
ants everywhere, right?
Hmm.
And when Tim McLean, and one of these days I'd love you to chat with Tim McLean, and I'm sure
Sure.
the guy's absolutely brilliant. You should have seen us back in the days of Wired, where we were thinking about
Did you
different
have
ways.
hair then, Paul? Did you
What's
have hair?
that?
Did you have hair then? Back in
Yeah,
that
I did.
day?
I
Me
did.
too. Probably
Well,
me too.
yeah, I started balding when I was like 25.
Oh
So
wow.
I just let it go. But
Yeah.
that was a while ago. It was like 2007, 2008. But
Okay.
we were talking about all these crazy ideas of how to engage people. So the attractor right now, right? It's
Hmm.
just a simple button. I tried to actually build something and I almost jumped out the window. So I just like, you know what? I don't
Let
have
me.
enough time. I'm going
Yes.
to just mess it up. I'm just going to talk about it. And
Okay.
then
So tell me
but
about it.
so you got the curator, right? So now the
Hmm.
curator is the invested. And heck, man, John Doe could be a curator. I
Sure.
mean, why not?
Sure.
So they learn to tag. They're taking these experiences, and these I'm talking about these experiences are deep.
Well, Paul. Well, what to me, what I've seen too with the homeless population is that they support each other. So if there's some services or something that's being offered, they're going to tell their buddies, they're going to tell their friends. And
Yeah.
so again, they're empowered to participate. They're getting real world knowledge from others and saying, hey, this is something maybe I can plug into. So I agree with you. You know, someone that's unhoused or homeless, they can be a curator. They can be someone that's disseminating this information to others to help them, and then they'll be that individual be establishing their own secure pathways with other providers or other advocates within that.
Ab- Absolutely. And here's the thing. And then that, and
So
what you're
you got
going to
me speaking
find.
your language, Paul. I'm ready to talk about this, man. You got me motivated because look, this discussion has really helped me really focus in on this and seeing how I know I sent you a bunch of articles from
Oh, yeah,
different
yeah, yeah. And I'll be digging into them.
people that are doing the work here, but this is what's missing. How do we bring them? And I'm just saying this. I'm not asking you, but I was asking myself, how do we bring all these people together?
Well,
Um,
and that's the attractor. Okay, so
mhm.
the difference between an attractor and an influencer. Let's think about this. I write this. This is going to be in my book, in my last essay. An influencer, because absolutely an attractor is the polar opposite of an influencer. First of all, that the ideology, the concept between an attractor is this. So what's an influencer? An influencer is something to influence you to make a decision
Sure,
for their benefit, the influencer's benefit. So whether it's you're going to buy something, Amazon's an influencer.
sure,
I was watching a documentary the other day, and it was really utilizing music quite a bit to emotionally kind of move
sure.
me a certain direction. That
They do.
it's like, oh,
Well,
they're doing that on purpose, man. It's a little
right.
bit too heavy. You know what I mean? It's
That's
just
right.
trying to influence my digestion of the
Hmm.
content.
Hmm.
And so an attractor is something that's neutral. The attractor is from the individual. So John Doe writes an essay about his experiences in the military and what
Hmm.
got him to first day number one on unhoused, right?
Sure.
And he writes that, and now he feels comfortable about sharing it, but he doesn't want to share it to the public. He doesn't want to put it on X. He wants to share it with Pastor Martinez.
Sure.
And so he's a curator because he's actually creating information. And so he's been invited into this community and now he's heard. Here's the thing, right? He's heard, she's heard.
Yes.
And I'm
Empowerment.
telling you right now, without a doubt, if we start to listen to these people with mental health issues, we're going to
Mhm.
find brilliance is
Hey,
what we
Paul,
are.
listen. It's not if we start. I do that now,
Okay.
um, because what I found in my own personal experiences is just that. When you allow people to be heard, when you give them a voice, when you just stand there and listen, not not listening to respond, but just listening to these people. One, they give you tremendous respect because there's so many people that disregard them, so many
Oh
people
yeah.
that don't see them standing right in front of them. So many people. But my own personal experience has been just that. So I see folks, honestly, that I've talked to. I know their name. I know their pattern. Again, they walk by my house almost every day, going get part of that 700 to 800 meals that they do a day. So I see almost the same people. Sometimes these people are having mental health crises right there, or
Yeah.
they may be having something. You know what I do, Paul? I step out in the street and I let them know that I'm there for them. I
Yeah,
said, hey,
that's amazing.
Paul, or hey, John, is there anything I can do to help you? And they look at me and they realize that I'm somebody that's been there to help them. And a lot of times they just want to be heard. So if they were yelling or they were doing something, that immediately goes away.
Yeah.
Once they're around people that they know care about them. So I'll bring a bottle of water, I'll just bring them a soda, or just go give them a hug. Because a lot of times that's all people want, is to be heard. They're down because of their situation and all that, but that's not really it. It's them being invisible in a country that's so prosperous.
Well, and okay, one of my other experiences with the city of Mesa, not to call out people, but we need to hear this because it was
Mm-hmm.
actually on a city of Mesa, the homelessness team on a
Okay.
video, and they have a preacher on there
Mm-hmm.
talking, and he's saying what you don't want to do is give somebody who's homeless water. You want to give them our resources and tell them to contact us. And that, I'm sorry for the language, but that pissed me off.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah.
really did. I mean, it really at my
Mm-hmm.
core. And that's where I was, I told you when I was trying to help, and I that
Sure.
Yvonne, and I
Sure.
was chased away and threatened by the people that were running that pay for beds. Yeah, this is what this is what, every time I try to
Hey,
dig in.
but poverty sells. That's the important unfortunate thing, that a lot of these providers or folks that are in there, it's because poverty sells. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people trying to monetize on people's poverty or people's
Well,
mis.
and here's the thing. I'm not calling out the people. You know what I'm calling out? I'm
Mhm.
calling out the system that is
Sure,
allowing that to thrive.
sure, sure.
And I always tell my son about this. Like
Hmm.
I'm trying to create an in run
Hmm.
around the problems of these institutions because
Hmm.
I want to be careful about calling out institutions too much and rich people. I don't want to do that. I don't,
No.
they work hard, but
Yes.
what do you do? What's your intent and action? What are you doing with your money? And here's the
Hmm.
thing. I've been reading a book about this called Winners Take All. And
Okay.
it digs in. I don't know if you're familiar with that book at all, but it's
No.
very interesting. And it's this, you know, a lot of this money that's being raised, billions and billions and billions of dollars, is going towards the symptoms.
Hmm.
They're not going to rent controls. They're
Oh,
not going
right.
to, a lot of money because that's
Yes.
it's
Yes.
sexier and
Affordable
it's
housing and not
but
go that.
what about inviting those people in? Because here's the thing, what I think that we will do, and thank you for correcting my language, what we
Mhm.
will be doing is we will be engaging the open source community. Because really, I think that this whole thing can be built without spending any money.
I agree. There's
And
people that have the
and
skill set that can support this and help.
yes, and how many people, how many homeless? I'm telling you, you'll go find a homeless person that can code me under the
Oh,
freaking.
I agree. I
I'm
agree.
telling you.
I agree.
But now we don't have the framework in place yet because we don't have the guide. We don't even know what's going to be
Nobody
built
know.
yet.
That's right.
But we
That's
will.
right.
That's our next couple of months because it's
Okay.
not going to
Good.
take us 6 years to do this.
Good.
We spend a couple of months on this and we really listen to the community. And what you're going to find when you talk to your people that
Hmm.
you're going to find somebody who knows how to code. That maybe has been a secret coder that
Absolutely.
you don't even know that it's code. It's like, well, I
Absolutely.
know how to do that.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, and I'm actually I want to hold to this intent versus action. I really don't want to raise money for this.
Okay.
Because as soon as
Well,
money is raised for this, where the story's been told over and over and over
it's
again.
my return on my investment.
Yeah, and I in my writing, you'll see, as opposed to return on investment, I call it ROI, return on interaction. So
Uh,
the ROI of
how
this
many
is
interactions
the
have you
return on interaction of how
that,
are
that
we engaging
and
and what
that's
are
the
we doing
measurement
to help
tool.
each other and help ourselves.
Yes.
It's just much about what Emily Davis is doing as a curator. How does she feel about herself when she's seeing the impact on the community?
Hmm.
And then
Good.
it's not just about helping others. It's about helping ourselves and being more
Sure.
in tune with our potential and our purpose.
Sure. No, I'm excited, Paul. This is a great discussion. Um, for me, I think that we've been able to provide, somewhat of a clear, maybe jumbled at times,
Yeah, that's me.
discussion. No,
That's
me too.
me.
But I think it's really the excitement of what we're working on, because you and I both know that um, this can be a tremendous tool and will be a tremendous
It
tool
will. It will.
for that end user, that unhoused person, but also the service providers, because they also need a new approach to being able to deal with people on a one-on-one basis outside of paywalls or corporate walls or an economic structure. So
Yeah.
again, I just want to keep applauding you in your efforts, and I want to me and my wife are going to pray for you and pray for you and your family that you know God continues to guide you on this
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
I know, we got a lot of work ahead of us, but it's a tremendous lift. For me, it's a tremendous place to be in when you're working on something that's going to be so impactful. So, again, I applaud the work, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Ravis, I really appreciate it. And I couldn't imagine somebody better to be able to take this to the next level
Mhm.
because it needs to start small. It needs to be tight with a community that really
Mhm.
has the need that are open. But here's the thing, the leaders need to be open to these ideas.
Sure.
I know you
Sure.
know the mayor and things like
Yeah,
that.
look,
And
let me share that with you too, because that's where, again, I think God is in play here, because just where I am as an individual within this city and my role in some of the positions that I hold and the people that I talk to, I literally have the police chief asking me, hey, is this a solution or community policing approach that we can take to bring here? I have other entities asking me, hey, what are some approaches that we can do, because I'm intertwined into this? Like, those things, we weren't connected in none of that. This is just my work up until this time. And then you come along and I'm like, well, here it is. Here's something that I can work on to help address some of these issues with some of these leaders. So I do believe we'll have buy-in. I know, at least how we're going to outline this, and I know we're going to talk offline some more on it. But we literally have a close-knit community or a neighborhood organization that's literally within the boundaries of the majority of our homeless population, or where they congregate for their meals and also living. I'm the chairman of that organization.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm also, I serve as the president of NAACP here in Lafayette Parish,
Yeah.
which literally puts me in the room in a lot of tables, a lot of meetings, trying to deal with these issues from that perspective. So again, once God allowed me to see or dig into what you're doing and to ask that question, and you be receptive and spend the time, because I think we talked about another hour after I asked you that question about the solid pod, and it was like um, I felt like now we're doing this podcast. You share with me, hey, my interaction with you led you to build out this
Mhm.
that you've put on the shelf. So this is all by design.
Yeah, it is. It
This
is.
is not happenstance. So again, our meeting was destined. And I know we're going to come out with something that's going to work, because you have everything that you need, Paul. I'm going to make sure you have it. You have a community, a small community, one large size. We have the issue, but you also have some stakeholders as decision makers that I can bring to the table. I have relationships with every entity that's serving the homeless populations,
Wow.
from their executive directors, their presidents, and their staff. I know them personally. They know me personally, because I go out there and I see how I can help them. So I may be ladling soup with them, but I'm also sitting in the business meetings with
Yeah.
them, helping
Yeah.
them set policy or correct issues that they may have. So you're in a very good place. This ain't Mesa. You're not going to be ghosted, because this is something we want. This is something I want, and others are going to want. My
Yeah.
goal is to bring this and bring you probably through Zoom. Maybe not my November meeting, but my December meeting of my neighborhood coterie. I normally have roughly 30, 40 people that show up, and then I broadcast that on Zoom, so I have more participation to introduce what we're working on and
Okay.
to see if we have some of those folks out there, coders or others that think like we're thinking, to support this effort. So, you know, you're the driver in this. I'm just in the car. Um, you know, in my goal or my hope is that we're able to bring people in that generally um, have the best interests at heart, because I do, and I know you do. And so, I'm like you too. I don't want to bring in money or people that's seeking money or from a financial gain. I want to be able to say, hey, we built something that's free and open, that's transparent, and that's not only helpful, but necessary.
Yeah.
If we do that on a smaller scale, I see no reason why it wouldn't be duplicated, reproduced, repackaged in a way that can serve other communities. And
Well,
again,
and one of the things that actually, as we're talking, I really, because I was going to try to publish my book a little bit sooner, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going, because I'll have better stories to tell, is that once we go live with this, then
sure,
I'm going to publish my book, which could help to really broaden that because we'll
yeah,
have a better, I don't know. I need to quit. Again, I have a desperate want to quit talking and doing. And
you
that
do,
would be a great little piece to end the book on. It really
yes,
would. So yeah, Ravis, you're amazing,
you
and
too, Paul.
the fact of what you've done in your community. I mean,
Mhm.
you're a walker, not just a talker, and
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
it's amazing, and you're very, very articulate and very brilliant.
hmm
You shared some of your essays where
hmm
I think it would be great for more people as we progress to
sure,
learn more about you and
sure, absolutely.
potential and your purpose,
hmm
and
hmm
and so this will be a collaborative effort. And the next thing is that let you and I really try to think about this and get it to its next. You give me feedback and maybe you have
Okay,
some feedback from your people
sure.
to the people in your community
hmm
to what can I do to even on the wireframe side of it, make it a little bit more responsive
Okay,
to because anything can change. Anything can change. I
understood.
mean, other than the calling it the attractor and and
hmm
and the Ask ChatGPT, I do want to be able to have that integration because I want
Sure.
people to be able to have a conversation. So, but yeah, man, this has been great. This is
Thank
I'm
Loved it. I love the time.
wow, man.
I
This
think
has
we
been
spoke for a good hour and a half.
yeah, it's
Easy.
good.
Um, and I know we can speak for more. Uh, I'll just wrap and say that, I'm excited about this opportunity to serve the community in a larger way um, through this effort, because being able to connect these various service providers with those that need it intimately on a one-on-one level is so necessary.
Yeah.
And again, the dynamic of bringing that person in or that unhoused person in, that's part of the solution too, in making those discussions or these decisions on who they're sharing or who they're dealing with. I think it's a powerful way to help people get past where they are, and again, change them from being a victim to one to being a victor. And
Oh,
so
that's
thank you again.
great. Oh my gosh, I love that. See, yeah, oh, man, God did bring us together because that's amazing how you
Yeah,
wrap that up. 'Cause language is language can be powerful, and you
yeah,
just wrapped it up. A
yeah,
victim into a victor, man.
mhm,
That is powerful. That is
yeah.
powerful, and
And
and we
that's what
are
I immediately saw. That's what I immediately saw. And to me, that's been the missing piece in a lot of projects or systems designed to try to help this population, the homeless
yeah.
population.
Well, I'm zeroing in on you, and that's what we're going to be working on. I mean, and that's my only priority on the nonprofit side of it, and whether it's 6 months or but we'll get there. We once we get this to where it's digestible, then
hmm
we'll find people to help.
Sure,
And if I'm not saying never money, but I'm telling
sure.
you, money enters it. You and I have got to have a
Understood.
major conversation about it.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah, you know
Understood.
how that goes.
Yes, understood.
So cool, man.
All
Oh, Ray,
right.
it's been a beautiful talk.
Same here. Same here. I appreciate the time. I really do. Really
Yep,
do.
yep. And we'll check back in a little bit, and I'll have a glorious rest of your Sunday.
You too.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the time. Looking forward to the next one. Let's
All
do it.
right. Sounds
All right.
great.
All
Talk to
right.
you
Bye.
later. Bye.